The smell of polished wood and lemon cleaner hit Kendra Miles as she stepped through the sliding doors of HomeSphere, the kind of furniture chain that promised hassle-free returns. Her heels clicked against the tile as she carried a medium box tucked carefully under one arm, a table lamp she'd bought just 2 days earlier. The lamp wasn't defective, it simply didn't fit the soft light of her living room. The color clashed, that was all. It should have been simple. Bring it back, show the receipt, get the refund. Easy. But as she approached the customer service counter, she noticed the difference. The woman ahead of her, a middle-aged customer in a cream sweater, was laughing with the clerk as they processed her return. The clerk, a young man with an easy smile, took her clearance item without question. He scanned, clicked a few buttons, and said cheerfully, "Refund back to your card." Kendra smiled faintly. Nice. Efficient. She clutched her own receipt, folded neatly in her palm. She was next. When she reached the counter, the clerk's expression shifted, just slightly, but enough to notice. The easy smile flattened. His eyes darted to the label on the box, then to her face. "Hi there," Kendra said, placing the box gently on the counter. "I'd like to return this lamp. I bought it on Tuesday." He nodded slowly. "Do you have your receipt?" "Right here." She handed it over. He unfolded the paper, scanned it once, then again, longer this time. His brow furrowed. Looks like this one's a discounted item." "Yes, but your policy says all returns are accepted within 7 days, even on discounted items, unless marked final sale. See, no mark." The clerk's tone cooled a few degrees. "Right, but there's an internal policy for clearance items. We don't refund those, store credit only." Kendra blinked. "That's strange. The customer before me had a clearance item. You just gave her a refund." He froze for a split second, then shrugged. "Each case is different." "Different how?" she asked. His shoulders stiffened. "Ma'am, I'm just following policy." That word, policy. It landed like a stone. Kendra could feel the eyes behind her, other customers, curious, half listening. She lowered her voice. "Can I see a manager, please?" The clerk sighed, clearly irritated. "Sure, but they'll tell you the same thing." The manager arrived, a man in a navy vest with a name tag that read, "Evan, store lead." He looked at the receipt, then at Kendra, and said the same phrase almost verbatim. "Sorry, no refunds on discounted items. It's store policy." "But that's not what your printed policy says, and that's not what I just saw happen 2 minutes ago." His jaw tightened. "Ma'am, you need to lower your tone." The words hit like a slap. She wasn't shouting, she wasn't angry, but she was no longer invisible, and that, apparently, was the problem. Her voice steadied. "My tone isn't the issue. Your inconsistency is." He folded his arms. "We reserve the right to refuse a refund at our discretion." Our discretion. There it was, the loophole big enough to fit bias through. The other customers avoided her eyes. One woman glanced over, uncomfortable, then looked away. The air felt heavier now. The lamp box sat between them like evidence. Kendra reached for her receipt, but the manager's hand hesitated before letting it go, as if reclaiming it meant she was reclaiming something else too, her right to question what was policy. "Keep your store credit," she said quietly. "I'll keep my receipt." She turned and walked out, her reflection caught in the security mirror overhead. For a moment she saw herself multiplied, calm, professional, and still somehow under suspicion. Outside, the cold air hit her face. She looked down at the paper in her hand. No refunds on discounted items, except when they decide otherwise. Something about that thought stuck. It wasn't about the lamp anymore. It was about what her mother used to say when she worked retail. Policy is just a wall. They build it tall enough to keep certain people out. Kendra folded the receipt and slipped it back into her purse. This wasn't over. Have you ever been told, "Sorry, it's policy," only to realize the rules seem to shift depending on who you were? Kendra's story is just beginning, and the truth she uncovers will expose how bias hides in plain sight behind a customer service smile. Stay with us, hit like, drop a comment, and subscribe to Black Thread Stories for the full truth behind the return policy that only applied to her.
Kendra Miles had always believed in order, in rules, in receipts neatly folded into labeled envelopes. She wasn't the type to make scenes. She made spreadsheets. If there was a policy, she read it. If there was a form, she filled it correctly. Her coworkers teased her for being the organized one, but Kendra wore that label with pride. Structure meant safety. Her mother had taught her that. When Kendra was young, her mom worked behind the register at a department store. Every night, she came home with stories about the customers who got away with bending the rules and the ones who didn't. The difference, she said, was never really about the rules themselves. It was about who the rules decided to bend for. "Always keep your paperwork, baby," her mother used to say, counting receipts like rosary beads. "The same policy that forgives them might be the one that punishes you." So when Kendra bought that lamp earlier in the week, she'd done everything right. She checked the return policy twice, printed, and online. It was clear. Returns accepted within 7 days, including discounted items, unless labeled final sale. Simple, transparent, fair. She'd bought the lamp on Tuesday night using her credit card. She kept the packaging, receipt, and tag attached, like her mother had taught her. There was nothing in her actions that warranted suspicion, no reason for the clerk's tone to change the moment she stepped forward in line. But now, sitting in her car outside the store, the humiliation still burned. The way he said, "Lower your tone." The way the manager's eyes had glossed over her explanation, as though she were a child caught making excuses. She pulled the receipt from her purse, smoothing the creases. Her hands were steady, but her jaw clenched. The words on the slip didn't change. Refund within 7 days. No mention of exceptions. No mention of discretion. Kendra replayed the scene in her head, each frame sharpening. The white woman before her, smiling, getting a refund for a clearance rug. The clerk's warmth melting into stone when it was her turn. The same policy, different outcome. It wasn't about a lamp. It was about belonging. That night, she called her friend Elena, a coworker from her office. Elena listened quietly, then said, "Are you sure it wasn't just a misunderstanding?" Kendra almost laughed. "That's what I thought at first, but I watched it happen. Same kind of item, same discount label. The only difference was her and me." Elena hesitated. "Maybe you should go back tomorrow. I'll come with you if you want. We can test it." Kendra frowned. "You mean?" "Yeah," Elena said. "I'll return it. Same lamp, same receipt. See what happens." Kendra's eyes narrowed as the idea settled in. "That's risky." "Not really," Elena replied. "If it's just policy, I'll get the same answer, right?" Kendra didn't answer right away. The thought made her pulse quicken. She wasn't looking for trouble, she just wanted fairness. But fairness, she was realizing, didn't come quietly. She agreed. They'd meet after work, same store, same counter, same lamp. As Kendra hung up, she caught her reflection in the car window. Tired but steady, her mother's steel in her posture. For years, she'd believed that if she followed the rules, she'd be safe inside them. But what if the rules themselves weren't made for her protection at all? She exhaled slowly. Tomorrow we'll find out. Inside her purse, the receipt rustled. That small, fragile paper she now understood was both proof and armor.
The next day, Kendra and Elena met in the Home Sphere parking lot just before sunset. The air was sharp with early spring chill, and Kendra clutched the same box against her chest, the lamp that had suddenly become more than decor. Elena arrived a few minutes later, her blonde hair tucked into a gray beanie, her smile easy. "You sure you're ready for this?" she asked. Kendra nodded. "I'm not looking for drama. I just want to know if I imagined it." "Then let's test it," Elena said, pulling her phone from her coat pocket. "You mind if I record, just in case?" Kendra gave a tight smile. "Record everything." They walked inside together. The store smelled the same, clean and pleasant, the kind of scent that was supposed to calm you into buying things you didn't need. A light pop instrumental played overhead, and near the customer service counter, the same clerk was working. His name tag read Chad. Kendra stepped back, letting Elena take the lead. Elena approached the counter, box in hand, with a friendly nod. "Hey there, I need to return this lamp. Bought it 2 days ago." Chad looked up, smile already in place. "Of course. Do you have your receipt?" "Right here." Elena handed it over, the same one Kendra had used the day before, photocopied and crisp. He scanned it, clicked the keyboard twice, and said brightly, "All right, refund's going back to your card." Kendra's heart thudded. No hesitation, no furrowed brows, no mention of store credit. Elena, feigning curiosity, tilted her head. "Wait, so you do refund discounted items?" Chad blinked. "Sure, within 7 days, as long as it's not final sale." Kendra stepped closer now, voice steady but cutting through the hum of the store. "That's interesting, because yesterday, this same item wasn't refundable. Today, apparently it is." His head snapped up. Recognition flashed across his face, followed by discomfort. "Oh, ma'am, you're the one from yesterday." "That's right. And yesterday, this same item wasn't refundable. Today, apparently, it is." He stammered, Maybe I misread the label. Or maybe my manager said—" "Your manager," Kendra interrupted softly, "your manager told me it was policy." The color drained from his face. A couple nearby slowed their carts, watching. Elena kept her phone steady, camera angled low but pointed at the counter. "I just need to understand something," Kendra said, her tone calm, deliberate. "Was it policy yesterday, or was it me?" Chad's mouth opened, closed. "Ma'am, I can't comment on that." "Then don't," Kendra said, lifting her chin, "because the video will." She turned and walked toward the door, Elena close behind her. Outside, Kendra's hands shook, not from anger, but from adrenaline. They sat in the car, both silent for a long moment. Then Elena broke it. "Well, that was clear enough." Kendra exhaled, her pulse finally slowing. "It's funny. I thought having a receipt meant protection." Elena looked at her gently. "For some people, it does." Kendra nodded, staring at the folded receipt on her lap, the paper that had turned into a litmus test, proof that fairness could hinge on a face, not a rule. "Send me that video," she said quietly. "I think I know what to do next." Elena raised an eyebrow. "You're going to post it?" Kendra thought about it for a moment. "Not yet. I'm going to give them a chance to fix it first." She looked out through the windshield, at the bright blue HomeSphere sign glowing against the darkening sky. "If they don't," she added, "then everyone else will see what policy really looks like." Inside the car, the soft hum of the heater filled the silence. The lamp box sat on the back seat. No longer just merchandise, but evidence.
That night, Kendra sat at her dining table, the lamp box now resting in the corner like an uninvited guest. Her laptop glowed faintly in the dim room, the cursor blinking on an empty email draft. The evidence was on her phone, a simple 2-minute video that showed everything: Elena's smooth transaction, the cheerful refund, the contrast to the cold refusal she'd received a day before. She'd replayed it 5 times. Every time, the same sting returned. Not anger anymore, but clarity. This wasn't confusion. It wasn't a misread label. It was a reflex someone had been trained to follow. Her mother's voice echoed in her mind again. Policy is just a word. The real rule is who they think you are. Kendra started typing. Subject: concern about discriminatory treatment at HomeSphere, store number 214, Philadelphia. Dear Customer Service Team, I'm writing to report an incident that occurred on March 17th at your store in Philadelphia. I was denied a refund for a discounted lamp, even though your policy clearly allows returns within 7 days, unless marked final sale. However, a white colleague returned the same item using the same receipt less than 24 hours later and was granted a full refund without issue. I have video documentation of both transactions. I'd appreciate a clear explanation of how your policy is being applied and whether your training allows such discretion in determining who receives a refund. Regards, Kendra Miles. She reread it twice, then hit send. Her hands were steady, but her heartbeat was loud in her ears. She didn't want drama, she wanted accountability. The next morning, the reply came, short and mechanical.
Thank you for contacting HomeSphere. We take all customer feedback seriously. Your concern has been forwarded to our regional manager. Please allow 5 to 7 business days for review.
No apology, no acknowledgement. Just procedure. Kendra stared at the screen, jaw tightening. 5 to 7 business days. The corporate version of, "We hope you go away by then." By that evening, Elena texted her.
Did they respond yet?
Kendra sent a screenshot of the generic reply.
That's it.
She wrote, "They're pretending it's not serious." Elena's reply came fast.
Then maybe it's time for the video.
Kendra hesitated. She knew once it was online, it would grow beyond her control. But that same phrase, "lower your tone," echoed back, taunting her. The whole point of her calm had been to avoid being dismissed. But silence wasn't peace. It was surrender. She opened TikTok, uploaded the clip, added a simple caption.
Same item, same receipt, different rules. Hashtag, same policy, different color.
She didn't tag the company. She didn't rant. Just facts. Then she set her phone down. 2 hours later, the notification started. By midnight, the video had 50,000 views. By morning, over 300,000. Comments poured in from people across the country.
This happened to me last year at another store.
They told me the same thing, store credit only. I knew it wasn't just me.
Proof. This is what quiet discrimination looks like.
The algorithm did its job. The story caught traction on Twitter, then Facebook. Journalists reached out. And then came the email from corporate, this time marked urgent.
Ms. Miles, we would like to speak with you directly regarding your experience. Our executive team takes these matters very seriously. Can we schedule a call at your earliest convenience?
Kendra smiled faintly. They weren't taking it seriously because they cared. They were taking it seriously because people were watching. She texted Elena.
Looks like we got their attention.
Elena replied with a single word.
Good.
Kendra sat back, exhaling. She had no idea how far this was about to go, but for the first time, she felt the balance tilt, just slightly, towards fairness. The store had its policy. Now she had proof.
The corporate call was scheduled for 10 a.m. sharp. Kendra sat at her desk with her laptop open, coffee steaming beside her. She'd taken the day off work, wanting to be clear-headed. Her phone buzzed. "Good morning, Miss Miles. This is Sarah from HomeSphere Corporate Communications. I have our regional director and legal counsel on the line." Their voices came through the speaker, smooth, professional, and already rehearsed. "Ms. Miles," Sarah began, "thank you for taking the time to speak with us. We understand you had an unfortunate experience in one of our stores." Kendra smiled slightly. "Unfortunate?"
That's one word for it. A pause. The legal counsel jumped in. We've reviewed the footage from the store and noted the difference in how your return was handled. We take bias very seriously, and we're addressing it internally. Kendra leaned closer to her laptop camera. Addressing it internally doesn't answer my question. Why did your staff enforce a different policy for me than for someone else? I'd like a clear reason, not a corporate slogan. The silence on the other end stretched long enough to be uncomfortable. Then the director cleared his throat. We believe it was a misunderstanding on the part of the store associate. He'll be retrained. Retrained? Kendra repeated, her voice calm but sharp. So when he said store policy, he wasn't lying. He was just badly trained? Again, silence. Sarah interjected softly. Miss Miles, please understand. HomeSphere values all customers equally. We do not condone discrimination in any form. Kendra held up her phone. Then explain this. She pressed play. The video of Elena's return echoed through her speakers. The clerk smiling, the refund issued, the receipt identical. Same policy, different outcome, Kendra said. This isn't just one bad employee. This is a culture of discretion that always seems to tilt one way. The counsel spoke, voice cooler now. Miss Miles, if this footage circulates further, it could damage our staff's reputations. Oh, I know. That's why I didn't post names or faces. But the truth doesn't need them, does it? Everyone already recognizes the pattern. The director sighed. What would you like from us, Miss Miles? It was the first honest question she'd heard. Kendra leaned back. I want an apology. Public, not private. I want your written return policy updated so no one else can hide behind vague language like discretionary refund. And I want every employee retrained by someone outside your company, someone who actually understands what bias looks like. That's quite a list, the counsel said dryly. It's quite a problem, Kendra replied. They promised to take her recommendations under review. She ended the call knowing what that phrase meant. Stall, dilute, delay. By evening, her video had crossed 1 million views. Other shoppers began posting their own experiences under her hashtag. Same policy, different color. Clips from department stores, clothing chains, even electronic shops. Stories of customers turned away, questioned, or flagged for invisible reasons. A journalist from the Chronicle reached out. Ms. Miles, your post started a national conversation. We'd like to interview you about systemic bias in retail. Kendra hesitated. She hadn't planned to become a story, but if she didn't speak, someone else would, and they might miss the real point. She agreed. The article ran 2 days later, under the headline, Same Policy, Different Color. One woman's return sparks a reckoning in retail. The piece quoted her directly. This isn't about refunds. It's about fairness. Because when policy becomes a mask for prejudice, it stops being policy. It becomes discrimination with a logo. The story went viral. National outlets picked it up. Customers organized petitions demanding accountability from HomeSphere. That night, Kendra scrolled through messages from strangers thanking her. You gave words to what I couldn't explain. I thought I was imagining it too. They called me rude when I asked the same question. For the first time since that day at the counter, Kendra smiled. Small but real. Maybe, just maybe, a receipt and a camera were enough to start change.
By Friday morning, Kendra's name was everywhere. Trending hashtags, think pieces, reaction videos dissecting how bias hides behind policy. She didn't expect to become the face of a movement. She just wanted her refund. But now, the story had legs of its own. When she scrolled through social media, she saw herself quoted in graphics. Policy becomes prejudice when it's applied by instinct, not rule. There were photos of protests outside several HomeSphere locations, customers holding receipts in the air like protest signs.
Some even taped theirs to the glass doors with notes that read, "We don't return to stores that don't return fairness." It would have been empowering, if not for the emails.
They started subtly. Please consider removing your video. The associate involved has received threats.
Then came the ones from anonymous accounts.
You're ruining someone's life over a lamp. Maybe if you'd been polite, it wouldn't have happened.
Kendra closed her laptop after that one, hands trembling. That night, Elena came over with takeout. They ate in silence until Kendra spoke softly.
You think I made it worse?
Elena shook her head. No, you made it visible. That's what they hate. The next day, Kendra received a formal letter from HomeSphere's legal team delivered to her apartment. The language was polite but heavy.
Kendra sighed. I wanted accountability, not attention.
Sometimes, Elena said, they come together. The next day, Kendra received a formal letter from HomeSphere's legal team delivered to her apartment. The language was polite but heavy.
We request that you remove all content containing the company's name and imagery. Publicly sharing in-store footage may violate our privacy policies and local regulations.
Below the signature, in smaller text.
Failure to comply may result in legal action.
Kendra read it twice, then laughed bitterly. So now I'm the policy problem? She called a lawyer, not for money, but for protection. The attorney listened, reviewed the footage, and said calmly, "They're bluffing. You recorded in a public space with no expectation of privacy. They just want silence." Silence. Again, that word that followed her everywhere. Kendra decided to double down. She posted a new video, just her, sitting at her kitchen table. No edits, no drama.
When I posted the first video, I wasn't trying to go viral. I was trying to be heard. I was told it was policy. Then I learned policy can shift depending on who you are. Now they want me to take the video down. But if speaking up makes you a threat, then maybe the system you're challenging was never fair to begin with.
Within hours, the clip exploded again. Journalists amplified it. Lawyers offered pro bono support. Even a few HomeSphere employees reached out quietly, confirming what she'd suspected all along. One email stood out.
We were told to flag certain customers for return review. It's not official policy, but it's understood who that means.
Kendra forwarded it to her lawyer immediately. She said, "This is it. This is proof." By Monday, the Chronicle published a follow-up article with the headline,
Insiders confirm bias in major retail chains' discretionary returns practice.
That same afternoon, the state's Consumer Affairs Office announced a preliminary investigation into HomeSphere's potentially discriminatory return policy enforcement. Kendra was stunned. The story she thought would fade had now triggered something institutional. Her inbox filled with interview requests again. But this time she chose carefully. No sound bites, no sensational headlines, just truth. During one segment, a reporter asked her, "What do you want to happen next?" Kendra thought for a long moment and then said, "I want companies to stop hiding discrimination behind professionalism. I want policy to protect people, not punish them." The clip went viral again, not because it was fiery, but because it was calm and true. That night, sitting by her window, she watched the city lights flicker against the glass. Somewhere in a corporate office, someone was rewriting a policy because of her. And somewhere else, another woman, maybe standing in a return line, would be treated fairly because of that change. She smiled faintly, whispered to herself,
That's the only refund I ever wanted.
The investigation moved faster than anyone expected. Within 2 weeks, HomeSphere's name dominated national headlines. What began as a simple return dispute had evolved into a case study in corporate bias. The Attorney General's office issued a statement.
Our office is reviewing evidence suggesting unequal enforcement of consumer policies based on perceived race or appearance. Such practices, if verified, violate both anti-discrimination and fair trade laws.
Kendra stared at the news alert on her phone, a swirl of pride and disbelief in her chest. She hadn't set out to start an inquiry. She just wanted fairness. But now, she'd forced an empire to answer questions it had long ignored. Her lawyer called that morning. "Congratulations, Kendra. You've built a precedent. This could lead to real reform." She smiled faintly. "Reform's a big word. I'll settle for accountability." But accountability came with a price. The more visible she became, the more the backlash grew. Online trolls flooded her inbox with threats disguised as opinions. Anonymous accounts posted comments like, "So now every mistake is racism? You people always looking for attention. Maybe if she wasn't so defensive, they'd have helped her." Kendra learned to stop reading after the first few lines. Still, the ugliness clung like smoke. Elena visited often, bringing food and silence, the good kind, the kind that didn't need fixing. One evening, they watched a local news segment together. The anchor spoke with urgency.
Since the viral video, more than 50 consumers have come forward with nearly identical experiences at different HomeSphere branches nationwide.
Elena turned to her. "You realize you just opened a door for all of them." Kendra exhaled. "Feels like I kicked it down, honestly." A week later, Kendra received an unexpected email. Subject, "We'd like to partner with you." It was from the National Consumer Fairness Alliance, a nonprofit watchdog group. They wanted her to join a panel about bias in retail, to share her experience publicly and help shape new training standards for major companies. She reread it 3 times. Part of her was hesitant. She wasn't an activist. She didn't give speeches. But another part, the same part that had refused to lower her tone that day, knew this was bigger than comfort. She said yes. At the conference, the air buzzed with quiet anticipation. Rows of journalists, advocates, and retail executives filled the room. When it was her turn to speak, Kendra stepped up to the microphone, steady but unscripted. "I used to think following the rules was enough. I thought if I kept my receipts and stayed polite, I'd be treated fairly. But what I learned is fairness isn't automatic. It's chosen every day by the people enforcing those rules." She glanced at the audience. Policy isn't neutral. It reflects the hands that write it and the eyes that interpret it. If your training doesn't address that, then your system is already broken. The room was silent, then thundered with applause. Afterward, reporters surrounded her. Someone asked, "Do you forgive the employees who treated you unfairly?" Kendra thought for a long moment. "Yes," she said softly, "because they were following a culture they didn't create. But forgiving doesn't mean forgetting. It means making sure it never happens again." The next morning, HomeSphere released a public statement. For the first time, it didn't sound like PR.
We acknowledge systemic inconsistencies in how our policies have been applied. We apologize to Ms. Miles and to all customers who were treated unfairly. Effective immediately, all discretionary return practices are suspended pending review. We commit to implementing independent bias training across all locations.
Kendra read it twice, slowly. It wasn't perfect, but it was something. When she walked past a HomeSphere branch that evening, she paused. A poster hung in the window.
Fair returns for all. No exceptions.
A small smile touched her lips. It wasn't the world her mother had hoped for yet, but it was closer.
The months that followed felt surreal. Kendra's life had changed in quiet but irreversible ways. The story that began with a lamp and a receipt had sparked an industry-wide reckoning. Other major retailers followed HomeSphere's lead, scrubbing discretionary language from their policies. Several companies even invited Kendra to consult on diversity and fairness training, something she never imagined doing. But fame, even the kind tied to justice, was strange. Strangers recognized her at cafes. Some thanked her. Others whispered. Her name had become shorthand for accountability. You better treat me right or I'll pull a Kendra Miles. At first, she found it funny. Then she realized it meant something deeper. People had stopped accepting silence. They were beginning to question the phrase, "It's just policy." Still, there were days she longed for anonymity. The story had taken something from her, peace, maybe, privacy. But it had given her something else, power she never asked for, but now knew how to use. One crisp Saturday morning, Kendra decided to visit her mother. She hadn't been home in months, not since the story broke wide. Her mom's small brick house sat at the edge of West Philly, unchanged and comforting. The moment Kendra walked in, her mother hugged her tightly. "You look tired, baby," she said, cupping her daughter's face. Kendra smiled faintly. "Just a long few months." "I saw you on TV again," her mother said. "You spoke well." Kendra sat at the kitchen table, fingers tracing the wood grain. "I keep thinking about what you used to say, about how policy bends for some people. You were right." Her mom poured 2 cups of coffee, sitting across from her. "You made the world listen this time. That's no small thing." Kendra shook her head gently. "I just wanted them to admit it." "And they did," her mother said. "That's more than most get." For a long moment, they sat in silence, not the heavy kind, but the peace after storm kind. Her mother reached into a drawer and pulled out a folded newspaper clipping. It was the article from the Chronicle. From Refund to Reform, How One Woman Changed the Way America Shops. Kendra laughed softly. "You saved that?" "Of course," her mother said. "One day your children will need to know what quiet courage looks like." The words sank deep. Quiet courage. That was all it had ever been. A week later, Kendra found herself back in a HomeSphere store. Not the same one, but a new branch that had recently reopened after policy revisions. She walked in, unannounced, just to see if anything had changed. At the counter, a clerk greeted her warmly. "Good afternoon. If you need a return, we accept all items within 7 days, even discounted ones." Kendra smiled. "Even discounted?" "Absolutely," the clerk said proudly. "No exceptions. It's company-wide now." She nodded, suppressing the swell of emotion rising in her chest. "Thank you," she said quietly. She wandered through the aisles, running her fingers over smooth wood tables, neatly folded linens, lamps lined up in perfect symmetry. Everything looked the same, yet different. The air didn't hum with tension anymore. At one point, she caught her reflection in a decorative mirror, calm, composed, wearing the same steadiness that once drew suspicion. Now, no one watched her. No one followed. She picked up a lamp, not out of irony, but instinct. Simple, elegant, warm. At the checkout, she smiled at the cashier and said, "No return necessary." When she stepped outside, sunlight spilled across the parking lot. She paused, closed her eyes, and breathed in deep. Some stories end with justice. Some with peace. Hers ended with both.
Kendra's story began with a receipt and ended with a reckoning. What seemed like a small act of defiance, refusing to accept a store's double standard, rippled outward until it changed something much larger than a single policy. It changed how people saw the quiet ways injustice hides behind politeness. The lamp, the receipt, the phrase, "it's store policy," they became symbols of how bias doesn't always shout. Sometimes it whispers in corporate language, in subtle tones, in who gets a smile and who gets suspicion. Kendra never wanted fame. She wanted fairness. And through her persistence, she forced a company, and then a country, to look at how professionalism can disguise prejudice. Her calm strength became a blueprint for others. People began documenting, questioning, pushing back.
every viral video, every shared story, every person who said, "This happened to me too," it all traced back to one woman who refused to lower her tone. She taught millions that silence is the cost of comfort, and comfort is the enemy of change. Months later, when asked in an interview what she'd learned most from the experience, Kendra said simply, "They thought I was fighting for a refund. I was fighting for respect, and that's something I'll never return." Her words echoed far beyond the store aisles, into offices, schools, and homes, wherever fairness had been quietly rationed out. Because in the end, her mother was right. Policy isn't the problem. The people behind it are. And when those people are finally held accountable, even the smallest receipt can become proof that justice was, at last, paid in full. If Kendra's story moved you, share it, speak it, because the line between policy and prejudice still exists in far too many places. Hit like, leave a comment, and subscribe to Black Thread Stories, where everyday injustice meets extraordinary courage, and silence is never the final word.